want to thank everybody. We do have a couple people coming in a little bit later. We have a meeting that's got quite a few agenda items, and so some folks, based on timing, are coming in a little later, and we'll welcome them in when they do. But again, welcome to the September 2022 ELPCO meeting. ELPCO is the community council representing Salt Lake City area, basically between East Liberty Park between Liberty Park and East High School, between 9th and 9th and 17th South. We've been around for a long time. I think I actually found out recently we're one of the first community councils that was created back in the 1970s. So there's a lot of history there. We've got a couple of our board members who are here. I really appreciate them. Christina Robb, representing the West of East area. Rebecca Huber, representing Gilmer Park. Jeff Larson from East Emerson. Michael Alosi, who's an at-large member. Ann Weaver is our treasurer. We'll have a couple more board members hopefully joining us, but it is a volunteer-led organization. And we do have board vacancies coming up, which we'll talk about a little bit later in our meeting tonight. I don't see the fire department here, unless they are there, and you can speak up if you are. I will, I'll just maybe go directly to Detective Fallows if you're ready to go. From the Salt Lake City Police Department?
Absolutely. Yep. Sorry, I was just getting my camera.
No worries.
Right away. Yeah, let's go over the stats. Do you want to put them up there, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe if you could introduce yourself. We might have some new people here, just to describe your role or what you do, and I'll get that screen share set up.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm Detective Sam Fallows. I of course work with the Salt Lake City Police Department. I am your community liaison officer for districts 5, 6, and 7. And so I am here to kind of just be a good resource to help you get, to help you find services in your neighborhood, things that you might need help with, maybe some unique problems that I could try and help problem solve and help get you some resources. So that's one of my jobs. And then of course, I go to the different community council meetings and present on crime in the area is another one of my jobs. So I'm going to be putting up some information in the chat for everybody. And it's just some helpful links that can kind of get you to get some of the issues solved that might be happening in your neighborhood. One thing I do want to talk about too, as well while I'm here, the SLC mobile app is a really good resource. I've talked about it before. For those that may not know, the SLC mobile app is essentially a way to report different types of concerns that may be going on in your neighborhood. Like for instance, there's one that's concerns regarding homelessness. There could be like down signs, speeding issues, things like that. But I do want to reiterate to everyone that it does not take the place of reporting a crime to the Salt Lake City Police Department, because those do not count as crime stats through the SLC mobile app. What it does is it helps the city know that there's an issue. For instance, if you see an individual who might need some resources, who might be experiencing homelessness, you could take a picture of their camp, send it in, and the city will send out resources to help get them some resources. So one of those things that is super helpful with the app, but it doesn't take place of reporting a crime if there is the need to do so, or if there's like a trespasser on your business property or your personal property, something like that. It doesn't take place to that. So just want to make sure we reiterate that to everyone. There has been a little bit of confusion with that. So, and then all the stats that we're going to go over today and talk about can be found on our website and the link that I put in the chat. So it's kind of an interesting thing to go through and look through. You can look through your neighborhood or through the whole city or different districts. So however you want to do that, but it's definitely an interesting thing to look at. So, yeah, let's go ahead and put those up. So a lot of, Jason put this together and I really appreciate that. A lot of what we do see in the ELPCO neighborhood, we do see a variety of different types of crimes. And unfortunately, we've kind of changed the way we are getting the stats reported. There's been kind of some updates on that. So what we're going to do from here forward is just kind of keep track of those. But it's essentially the same stats, they're just broken down a little bit differently, and they're directly from the website so that you all can see them as well if you need to. Essentially, What we see quite often in ELPCO is theft related crimes. So we can see we had 13 of those in the month of August. And did you put up stats for all the months there, Jason?
Give me 1 second, just working on that. Let me try it this way. That should give you all the months. Do you see that?
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So because we've been off for a few months, so we can kind of see the different things. So from May to August, we've kind of seen a spike, which is pretty common around the city actually for thefts. We see kind of a spike over the summertime, and then things kind of start to calm down. So hopefully for the rest of the year, we start to see that number continue to decrease. And then another and the all other offenses is basically anything that's not reported on the part 1 or part 2 crimes. So there's quite a few different categories, but they can't cover all of them. So you'd have to go into those to see those directly. But vandalism is another thing that we deal with quite a bit in ELPCO. And again, you can see the different, how it's kind of gone a little bit up, a little bit down, and a little bit up. So pretty common again to see that across the city, but we definitely want to see our numbers go down more. It's just a good reminder to be making sure we're locking up our vehicles. Please don't leave anything, of super value that's out in the open where people can just see that, because that definitely can make you a target for, for people to break in your vehicle. And then also just make sure that when you're parking your vehicles at night, if you can, put them in a garage. If you don't have that option, just try and keep your driveway lit up at night so that it doesn't, again, attract any unwanted individuals onto your property. Let me.
Would you like me to go to another slide, Detective?
Yeah, you can just go back to the August slide. So not slide number 2.
Sure.
We're also seeing burglaries, and so again, these are all kind of property related type crimes. So again, just make sure that your homes are lit up at night. Make sure that you're locking up everything at night. Make sure your garages are closed. That's a very common one. We see that people leave their garage or their sheds unlocked or open by accident, and then people go in and just take whatever's there. So again, just make sure we're doing that. And then on the last slide, we can kind of see like the overall from May to August. So slide number 4 there, we can see that like everything's kind of trending down for the most part, which is good. So we want to keep seeing that, but especially like those property crimes where they're the highest thing that we deal with. And then hopefully as we get through the end of the year, things kind of cool off with that. So does anybody have any questions for me? Or if they do, you can put them up in the chat as well. But anybody have any questions they'd like to ask me or anything they want to bring up that I can answer?
Detective, I'm just curious, do you provide this new data for other community councils as well? The sort of the new categories that have been put together?
Yeah, so this data is taken directly off our website. And so that's where I'm pulling all of my statistics for every community council meeting that I go to. And so each, that's where I'm getting all the data from essentially. Got
it. And one just clarification about how the data works. I think we used to have something like 80 or 90 categories, and now we're down to 27. So consolidate, it used to be like 5 different burglary categories, a bunch of different assault categories. And so now we're working with a much more consolidated version, a little bit easier to run the numbers and hopefully a little bit easier to understand as well. So starting from now, we'll start tracking this and seeing where it's going. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I appreciate all the help with that, Jason.
I do have one quick question. So you said that stuff that goes in the app doesn't go in the stats. And so is there a reason for that? I mean, like, why not?
Yeah, the reason is because they don't, the systems don't talk to each other. So the SLC mobile app is specifically to report, and it could be a crime as well. So like, let's say for instance, you have someone in Liberty Park, which is, I guess, technically right outside ELPCO, but like if they're in Liberty Park and they're camping in a tent and you're like, that's concerning. So you take a picture and you upload it to SLC mobile app so that we can send out some resources to help get them help. So that's what the SLC mobile apps, that's what that main job is for. It's not really to report, I mean, we'll call it a crime, but really it's like a city ordinance to not camp, right? So then if you wanted to have a more immediate response with the police to go out and engage, then you would need to call our non-emergency dispatch line. But the point of the SLC mobile app is to kind of help with those things that aren't necessarily crimes. For instance, again, you can report, like, let's say there's a down stop sign in your neighborhood that you're like, man, this really needs to be taken care of. It's dangerous. People are just blowing through it. You can take a picture of the down stop sign, send it in, and our streets will get that, and they'll come out and they'll take care of it. Now, that's not necessarily a crime, right? Because it's not a crime for a down sign, but it's something you'd want to get fixed. So it's helpful in that way as well. It's not, because it's, again, it helps you report, like, if you have a lot of speeding issues in your neighborhood, you can, and you want like our motor division to come out and do like a speed enforcement or something like that, you can use the app to do that. Or graffiti, if there's graffiti on a building in your neighborhood or on your home or something like that, you can take a picture and the graffiti removal team will come out and take care of that. But if you wanted it to be reported as the crime side of it, you'd still need to call, and or you can go online as well to our to the SLCPD website, and you can do a report online if you want. So I realize it's kind of redundant, but it's just the systems don't really speak to each other, and there's really no way for us to capture what might be a crime through the SLC mobile app compared to like what shows up on our reporting system with the police department. So good question, but yeah, unfortunately, it's just kind of how it works. Maybe hopefully in the future, maybe someday they'll be able to like just kind of integrate everything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is, like, I remember I reported something like a car break-in it was probably a year ago, and it was just kind of a pain to report it. So I just I don't usually report things, to be honest. Like, we had someone go in our backyard and stuff, and it's like, it was too much of a pain. I'm not going to deal with it, and then it skews the data. So I work for the government too. I work for the federal government, so I totally get it with systems not talking and but I'm just saying, I don't know, if you want good data,
Did you say you use the SLC mobile app to report someone going through your vehicle, or you use the online reporting?
I like called the station, or it was either call or online. I think I called and they made me use the online, and that was the thing that was like, seriously?
So, I mean, they try to do that just to like basically get you a quicker service. So if you use the online, so I'm trying to differentiate too, so everybody understands. There's the SLC mobile app, which is not online reporting. That is very different. Our online reporting will count as a crime stat for your neighborhood. It does count as a statistic that happened. So if your car did get rummaged through, no video of a suspect, nothing like that, online reporting is the way to go, because it should be fairly simple to do an online report. But essentially what it is you're not waiting around a couple hours for an officer to give you a call, take the report on the phone, and then get you the case number. Essentially, when you do it online, you get your case number right away. You can actually, I believe you can actually print the report if you need it. And then if you need it for like insurance purposes, things like that, you can have it right away without having to wait around for an officer to come respond and or call you. So, and that does get reported as a crime stat. So those, just to differentiate between the two, it's a little confusing, but yeah, and I think you understand that, but just for everybody, the mobile app is different than the online reporting, the online reporting does count as stuff going on in the neighborhood. Just a FYI on that.
Thanks for explaining that, Detective. It's true. And we want our stats to count in ELPCO. So, even minor things, if you're going to report it, please do. The police department follows definitely a data-centric model. So all those data points really do help. So thank you for coming today, and look forward to hopefully those numbers continuing to go down. That's the way we like to see them. Just want to reintroduce that we are at the East Liberty Park Community Council September meeting. Thanks everyone for coming. We've been in person for the past couple of months, but man, it's just a lot easier to do online. And we had a lot of people for presenting tonight, and so that's how we're doing it tonight. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, we'll readjust if we need to. But let's head on to the rest of our agenda. We've got a great agenda, transit focused a little bit later. But first, let's check in with Salt Lake City Council member Darren Mono, who's here. Thank you, Darren, for being here, and please take it away.
Thank you for the invitation. I think there were a few things that, I don't know if it was you or somebody asked me to speak on. So I'll touch on those and then let anybody ask questions. I think the first one was related to the $85 million general obligation bond that you're going to be seeing on your ballot this year. So the mayor proposed actually an $80 million bond for open spaces throughout the city. And the council discussed it, and there were a few sort of priorities that felt like they hadn't been added into that bond. So we added a little bit more. So it's now up to $85 million. And that's something that the voters have to approve. And it would be used for, again, for parks. One of the major parks that we're looking to use it for is the Glendale Regional Park, which is where the old Raging Waters site used to be. But within District 5, there is some money for the Liberty Park Playground, also some money for Fleet Block, which is now actually technically in District 5. It was just outside the border until we redistricted, but over in the granary area. And then there's some money for neighborhood parks in there. So every district would have some neighborhood park improvements, and those are yet to be determined which specific neighborhood parks would get that funding. It kind of depends on where the need is, but the idea is that amount of money is to be spread throughout the entire city. So that's going to be something that is on your ballot this year, and the voters get to choose whether or not that funding happens. Since it's a general obligation bond, that does mean that the bond is paid for by taxpayers and residents. So its property taxes will get an additional assessment. So this one does result in an additional tax to property owners. And so that's why it's up for a vote. I personally think that we've had parks are something that we've underfunded for many years and under-maintained, and this will really help us catch up with that and really plan and build what we need for the future of Salt Lake City. But there is some other additional money that we approved this year, which is for similar purposes. This is a sales and excise bond, which does not result in additional tax. It's just basically us taking out a loan that will repay with future sales tax receipts. So it doesn't increase the amount of sales tax. It just is kind of committing some of those future sales tax receipts to these purposes. One of the major things for that one is repaving the roads at the cemetery. Salt Lake City Cemetery, if you haven't been there recently, is gorgeous, but in much need of repair. So that's one of the things that bond will go for. But together, both of them are sort of focused on open spaces. And that's something that that is kind of a priority. The other thing that we did with open spaces is before I was on the council did what we call funding our future, which was at that time a sales tax, an additional sales tax. It basically, when the state put the prison in, they allowed the city to collect more sales tax than other cities are allowed to. And so the council at the time chose 3 items for that to be used for, and the mayor and the council this year added a 4th item, which is for parks and open space maintenance, which is something that we've done. Like, weirdly, it's easier to find money to buy new parks and to improve new parks than it is to maintain parks sometimes, just based on how the budgets work and what certain funding can be used for. So that part of that funding our future will now be used for parks maintenance, in addition to roads, roads, public safety, and I'm blanking on the 3rd one. I think is affordable housing. But those are some of the questions on the bond, some of the sort of highlights. The next thing that I was asked to talk about was a park ranger program. You may know this, but we've been staffing up a park ranger program. They are not yet fully staffed to my knowledge, but there are 18 spots, and those park rangers will be based out of 4 areas: 1 at Liberty Park, 1 at Pioneer Park, 1 at Fairmont Park, and 1 at the Jordan River Trail. And those are the 4 spots that those 18 park rangers will sort of monitor and go help. They are not law enforcement. so they don't deal with criminal activities. But if somebody is maybe having a issue in the park and needs assistance, they're just kind of eyes to be there in the park. They're also for visitors that need directions, but they will also have kind of a quicker access to, you think of them kind of like the downtown ambassadors. They're not police officers, but if something happens and they happen to be there, it's just somebody to be able to quickly call in for additional services. So that is happening. Once they're fully operational, they'll be from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. And the idea is to make the park more friendly, easier to use, and safer, and be a kind of quicker conduit between the public and law enforcement for any issues that may arise in the park, in any of those larger parks. It's a new program and one of many what we're kind of lumping together as alternative response models, where for many years the police department has turned into the one-stop shop for any problem, even if it's not criminal. And they've had to deal with a lot of things that are in some ways that they either are not trained for or that they didn't sign up to do, and that other people could do a better job of, so that they can actually go focus on the things that are true crimes and public safety issues. So that's sort of the goal of that. We've had several of these new programs that we started, and we're kind of evaluating which ones are the most effective, if there's some that overlap and can be combined, etc. And then the last one that I was asked to speak about was the affordable housing incentives. Now, this one is a forthcoming land use ordinance, which would allow some additional flexibility for developments if they choose to incorporate a certain amount of affordable housing. That is not yet on the city council's desk, so I don't know exactly what we will end up discussing but it's currently, I believe, at the planning commission. They heard it, had a lot of input, and they had asked for some changes, and so now that's back at the staff level drafting some of those changes. I believe one of them was to reduce the level of affordability required, and when I say reduce, the AMI gets reduced, which means it's actually more affordable than what was currently proposed. I believe it was going from 80% AMI, which is currently in our market, not actually that much less than a market rate apartment. And so reducing that down to 60% AMI, which actually does start to become an affordable apartment for somebody that is in need of that. But along with several other issues, other changes. So the general idea is it's making development a little bit easier, but in return for those sort of concessions from the city, the developer has to provide affordable housing for Salt Lake City residents. Kind of connected to that, we are, and not something that I was asked to speak about, but I'll just mention it. We did discuss on Tuesday 3 sort of pretty old ordinances that are also aimed at creating affordable housing, and we've discussed these many times in past years, and we're now sort of gearing up to take a vote on those in the next couple of weeks. That's the shared housing ordinance, the RMF 30 ordinance, and the off-street parking ordinance. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that and why that's coming up now, or what those even mean, but I won't take up any of your time unless there are specific questions. And that's all I have prepared. Does anyone, any of those 3 things or anything else that you'd want me to know or to help you understand?
Any questions for Councilmember Mono about anything he's talked about, or those 3 things he kind of teased us with that are coming up on the council agenda? Anybody want to do? I mean, I guess I would wonder, Councilmember, which one of those, the SRO, the ADU, or the RMF 30, sort of housing issues, which one is going to impact District 5 or ELPCO the most, based on your estimate?
So, okay, the ADU is another one that's not quite to us yet. So the 3 that we're looking at are shared housing, off-street parking, and RMF 30. And actually, I'd have to look at the maps to be sure, but I don't think off-street park, or I don't think shared housing or RMF 30 exist at all in ELPCO. There may be a few RMF 30 parcels on the north edge of ELPCO, but and maybe some along 7th East, but I think most of those are further south into Sugar House. So actually, I don't think either of those zoning types exists. This SRO, which we're now calling shared housing, exists more in the commercial core of the city. So Ballpark and State Street has a lot downtown, and then North Temple will be sort of the areas. And so those more commercial transit connected areas. ELPCO's a lot more single family zoning. The off-street parking ordinance, to my knowledge, I don't think it actually changes the amount of parking required. I'd have to double check this, but I don't think it changes much for the amount of parking required in single family zoning. It may change a little bit for the actual 9th and 9th area. Basically what it does is right now our parking ordinance is 100 different zones that each have their own requirements for parking, and we're simplifying that into 4 different contexts. So there's from the highest requirement for parking, within which all of the single family zones will exist, down to the least requirement for parking, which is essentially in most cases, 0 parking required. And that's like what we see in the form-based zones and the TSA, the transit center zones, neither of which exist in ELPCO. But the middle 2 contexts are where you would see things like 9th and 9th, some of the properties like, I mean, 15th and 15th is technically out of ELPCO, but like some of those little nodes is where you may start to see those middle 2 contexts. And so in some cases, it'll increase the amount of parking. In most cases, it will reduce that. But I mean, ELPCO is really kind of at the lower end of density zoning. And so it doesn't change that too much.
Got it. Thanks for that bird's eye view, because we always like to know how things impact us. And I think you directly keyed in that parking is something we fight about here in ELPCO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
We're
that's
a
the
little
one
famous
that
for.
it affects the whole city. So, I mean, it's basically condensing all of the parking ordinances in the city into that one ordinance. More than anything, it simplifies the current code. It's just so convoluted and takes forever to sort through. So more than anything, it simplifies it.
Got it. Okay. Any questions for Councilmember Mono about those issues? Any follow-ups? You know, I'm wondering, Councilmember, if you might post the link to your website and your newsletter. That's
Sure.
where I get a lot of my information about what the city's doing. And we've got some newer people here today that just a way to passively soak in all that's going on in Salt Lake City. It just comes to your inbox. So it's the cheat sheet for following. So if you don't mind posting that, that'd be great.
I will, and I'll put my contact information as well. Thanks, Jason.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Councilmember. Thanks for being here. We'll go next to from the council chamber to the mayor's office, and we have a new liaison for ELPCO. There's been a switcheroo that's been happening over in the mayor's office, and so we have Joshua here, and I think you are on, Joshua. I remember seeing you come in.
Yes,
see.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Are you on the phone?
I'm on my phone, and I'm not very confident in my cell connection right now to turn on my camera. So unfortunately, I have to stay audio only for now. But yes, did you have anything else? Or do you want me to continue?
No, just go right ahead. We'll just have to draw pictures of what we think you look like in our mind. So.
Well, I was actually at the 9th. Yeah, you saw me, right? The 9th and 9th festival. So, and I've actually been in the mayor's office for about 3 years. I had been up until July this year, the liaison for District 1 and 2. So for all the West Side communities. So I'm excited to be with District 5. And of course, Tim Cosgrove, who you all know well, continues to be on the mayor's office community engagement team, and is now a citywide liaison, is working on more of the citywide policy issues and working more of a leadership role. So I'm stepping into the District 5 liaison position, and I'm excited to work with ELPCO and District 5. So I don't have a whole ton of updates, but I do have some links I'm gonna just post into the chat right now. And know everyone likes all the links that come in through the chat. It's a good way to share information. Actually, just trying to get that. Hold on a sec. You should see that coming through here. So I just posted those links, and obviously those watching them perhaps on live stream can't see them, but for current surveys that the city is conducting, you can go to slc.gov/feedback, and that's our feedback community page. And then one of the current surveys projects going on right now is our neighborhood byways, and the one in the area for you would be the Kensington Byway project, which was actually a CIP or capital improvement project application for that Liberty Wells submitted back in 2019 and is now is underway, the community input period, and that should start construction in end of next year, early 2024. There's other neighborhood byways in the area that are being constructed or implemented, and basically what that is taking roads and slowing down traffic, emphasizing local traffic, people that live on those roads, getting rid of some of the cut through traffic on some roads that people use to get to other major streets, and slowing that down, emphasizing other modes of transportation besides cars. And so that's what a byway is, and that's what's being implemented in various locations in the city. So take a look at that for Kensington. And then one of the other surveys that, if you were at the 9th and 9th Festival, you might have seen them collecting information for this one, which was Housing SLC. They had a map there where for people to put pins on what they wanted to see improved in the neighborhood and in the city. The Housing SLC plan is a 5-year housing plan that the city is required to make, but those on the team that work on this want to go above and beyond in creating a good plan and vision of what people in Salt Lake City want to see. And so take that survey if you haven't already. It's gotten good response so far. As I mentioned, the CIP application, CIP program, the applications are currently open through September 30th. And that's for the fiscal 2023-2024 year. And then, as the council member mentioned, the Salt Lake City Park Rangers, I posted the link. That might have been, I don't know if that was posted already, but I posted the link to the program page. I believe that they are almost staffed for their current team. I think they had 13 Rangers. They wanted to get to 18. And then I think they're still looking for their supervisor. And then lastly, SLC sponsored events is at slc.gov/events. We have another Mayor's Bike to Work Day. She did one back in May for National Bike Month. Another one coming up on Wednesday, the 28th at 7:30 a.m. from 17th South River Park over in by the Jordan River. And also on the 1st, the Fisher Mansion a beer garden on the 1st and 2nd of October. It's another one coming up sponsored by the city. So those are listed at that website. And yeah, that's all I have for now. And then aside from that, I'll go ahead and post my contact information into the chat. You can reach out to me at my cell, which I'll put in there, and then the email, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Gotcha. Any questions for Josh from Salt Lake City Mayor's Office? This is kind of like the Masked Singer version of ELPCO, right? Like, we don't quite know what you look like, but we hope to meet you soon and see you in person soon. More of us will get to know you. We appreciate you coming by. Any questions for Joshua about the links he's posted or what he talked about? Well, we appreciate that information. You mentioned Salt Lake City events. We just finished our 9th and 9th Street Festival, the 29th year of the 9th and 9th Streets Festival. That's certainly something we lean on Salt Lake City to get information and get materials for. So thanks for the city's help on that. I actually have a survey that we're trying to get feedback on that festival. I'll put that in the chat as well. Folks can take a look at that. Takes about a couple minutes, but it gives us valuable information to help plan the 30th anniversary of the festival next year and onward. So thank you, Joshua, for coming, especially connecting on a weak cell phone. That's always dicey, but we're glad you're here. We look forward to working with you here at ELPCO. Okay, moving on, we actually will move into the political realm a little bit. We received outreach from Lanny Chapman's campaign for Salt Lake County Clerk, to say hello. I know she is at another event tonight on the west side. There's a big candidate forum going on at the Fair Park, and it looks like we have a representative from her campaign, Tatum Smith. Tatum, I'm going to give you the spotlight. If you could just introduce yourself and your connection to the campaign and what's going on.
Yes, hello. My name is Tatum. I am speaking just as a supporter of Lanny. I am helping out with her campaign as well. She really wishes she could be here. Like you said, she is right now just inside behind me, actually, at the West Side Forum. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of information about Lanny. So she is running for county clerk this year. And I always like to say what the county clerk is, because honestly, like 2 years ago, I had no idea. So the county clerk manages elections, is their main job. They also work with marriage licenses and passports, and they also manage the minutes for the county council meeting. And so she's actually been serving as the chief deputy county clerk for the past 3 years, which I really love to see, because it just means that she knows what she's doing already. And she's just really just ready to step into that role and just hit the ground running. Before actually she worked with the clerk's office as well. She had worked as a deputy district attorney. And so like as a lawyer, she really just has like that knowledge and understanding of election laws. It also means that she's been serving as a public servant for a really long time. I know one thing that I'm always hearing Lanny say that I really appreciate is that she's really passionate about keeping public offices in the hands of public servants. And Lanny, like I said, she already knows the ins and outs of elections. She also already has experience working with and connections with the sheriff, the United Police Force, to ensure election safety. She's really passionate about maintaining vote by mail and ensuring safety and accessibility at the ballot box. I will keep this pretty brief, but thank you guys so much for having me on just to chat a little bit about Lanny. I know she's really looking forward to the October 3rd candidate forum that you guys are hosting. So thank you guys for joining in on that. She's really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Tatum. That was an excellent segue to my next announcement about that October 3rd candidates forum. In addition to reminding folks that we have an election coming up, it's the midterms. President's not on the ballot, but it's still super important to vote. Ballots will be going out about October 18th by mail to every registered voter in Salt Lake County. So make sure you are registered and everything's up to date. And we are hosting, along with 10 other community councils, an event on October 3rd at Highland High School. We're going to have like 15 candidates from 7 different races, including the Salt Lake County clerk race, represented at Salt Lake County at large, county council, local school board, whole mix of great candidates speaking there. So thanks for introducing that concept. By then, Lanny's going to be super good on the stump, because she's going to have a lot of practice, I'm sure. And I just wanted to say that ELPCO will welcome any candidate who wants to speak briefly to our community. And so that invitation is always out there for just introducing yourself. So thanks for doing that tonight. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to our transit focus of the Salt Lake City, or the ELPCO meeting tonight. It's all about Salt Lake City. That's where we live, after all. And we've got a couple of great events and conversations coming up, specifically around how to move around this city. You know, cooler weather is happening. We're kind of not melting anymore when we walk outside. I think that's why the mayor's having a second bike to work day, because it's like the great time to do that. And so we're going to focus on new ways to get around Salt Lake City, some new changes in our streets and in some of the technology that enables people, specifically e-bikes, which, if you've noticed, are really catching fire in this city. Not literally catching on fire, hopefully, but lots of people are getting them, and you'll probably see some in your neighbors' garages or driveways coming soon. So let's start off by talking about how we're going to get around in terms of infrastructure with a presentation from Lynn Jacobs from Salt Lake City Transportation, coming back to us with a new look at 1100 East, which is a super important throughway here in ELPCO. So Lynn, looks like you're ready to go.
I am. Can you see my screen okay, Jason?
Loud and clear, or bright and clear.
Bright and clear. Excellent. Thank you for having me again. I was last year, I think in about April, maybe since then. I think my date was April when I was here last, and I promised I would be back this fall with an update as we got further along on design, and here I am. So excited to be here tonight. We actually have made a handful of really great changes to our design on this project, and I'm excited to bring those to you tonight. Just as a recap as to where we've been, If you remember our project, the real reason we're out here is to replace the aging pavement that we've got on this roadway through the Funding Our Future bond that council member Mono mentioned earlier in this call today. This is actually what's paying for this roadway reconstruction. And that's why we're doing it, is the pavement's really in bad shape and we've got to replace it. The secondary objective, while we're out here rebuilding the road, it's a chance for us to rebalance all the competing interests on the roadway and do what we can to make the roadway operate better for all of you and for everyone using it. So as a timeline, we are now approaching our 70% final design. When I was here last, we had completed the conceptual design. And as we move through this, we update, we change, we modify, we try to make it better. And it's exciting to see that progression. Our design will continue through 2022, so through the end of this year. And then the construction is anticipated to be in 2023. We'll be out there rebuilding this roadway before we know it. All the design elements I'm going to show you tonight are still subject to change due to all the budget and physical constraints that we have as we go through our final design. Things will probably change between now and then, but I think we're getting much, much closer to what we're actually going to build. As a reminder from what we heard in the past from this community group and from others in the community, the key messages that we took away from all the surveys that we did and all the work we did up front in this project was that there was a strong desire for traffic calming, that there was a feeling that there were way too many people speeding on this roadway and that people are really aggressive when they're driving down 1100 East. I will say firsthand, as we've gone out and walked the corridor and been out there, we've seen that ourselves. And I've seen some really aggressive driving behavior on this roadway over the last 3 to 4 months as we've been out just walking around, keeping track of all the things we're doing. And it just really strikes home how important it is that we do projects like this to slow people down and try to make it safer for all of us. There were also a lot of concerns about vehicles that were parking too close to intersections, which made it hard for people on side streets to actually see traffic and see whether or not it was safe to pull out into traffic on 1100 East. And then finally, there was a need for missing bicycle infrastructure on this roadway. We have bike lanes, but they are substandard and they only extend for part of our area. And so this was the previous concept that we had developed. If you'll remember, we are planning on modifying the roadway so that we would have buffered bike lanes and we would retain parking on one side of the street, but that parking would flip from east to west side depending where you were on the corridor. And at major intersections like the neighborhood byway at Kensington Avenue, again, that council member Mono pointed out earlier today, we would have these bulb outs that would help us kind of slow traffic and also make it shorter for pedestrians who are trying to cross the roadway. The big change that we've come up with is we've actually come up with a better mousetrap for these intersections. Bulb outs are really helpful. They work really well to slow traffic, but they're a lot less effective when we have a bike lane next to them. And it's something we've struggled with as a city, is that the bulb outs and bike lanes are not as compatible as we would like them to be. And it reduces the effectiveness of traffic calming. So if we built this bulb out, we would have had, the 2 travel lanes and the width of the bike lane still in pavement. And for a lot of people, that still feels like a really wide roadway that you can travel down pretty quickly. And so as we kind of went back to the drawing board and scratch our heads, how can we really slow traffic down on this roadway? We came up with a better solution. And that's what I'm going to show here on this next slide. So this is actually our new idea at Kensington Avenue. And I'm also showing Harrison Avenue on this slide. So instead of doing that curb extension or the bulb out that we had talked about before, what we are going to do in lieu of that is we're actually going to build a little island in the roadway right here where this green box is. And then there will be another one here on both sides of the intersection, and then a little mountable island out inside of the intersection. What this will serve to do is to give a place for that bike lane to go. And at the same time, it will physically constrain the roadway even more than that bulb out would have, with the intent of really slowing people down as they come through here. We keep the same concept outside of the intersections of our buffered bike lane with parking that alternates from one side to the other. As a matter of fact, you can see here at Kensington, to the south, our parking would actually be on the east side of the roadway. To the north, it would be on the west side of the roadway. As vehicles traverse through the intersection, they actually have to kind of laterally shift from one side of the road to the other. That as well will serve to slow people down as they have to maneuver around these islands and around parked vehicles and around the bike lanes. And so the goal here is to just really slow people down. The islands are also really effective at keeping people from parking right next to the intersections, which should improve that sight distance issue that we heard about. We will still have the curb extensions on the side streets at many locations, like at Kensington, that will narrow that roadway so that people turning off of 11th East actually will slow down quite a bit going into the neighborhood. And that really helps as well to just calm everything down, slow traffic down a little bit, and at the same time provide a really high quality, high comfort infrastructure for those who are riding bikes and for those who are walking on this roadway. We're actually going to do something even more than that at Harrison Avenue. I think I mentioned this last time. We were looking into doing a raised intersection where basically the entire intersection will be like a tabletop and will sit at the same elevation as the sidewalk. And then the road around it will sit lower. So people will have to ramp up to go across the crosswalks and then ramp back down on the other side. Almost like a raised crosswalk, except for in this case, it's the entire intersection that will be raised. We're going to do the same treatment with these islands. In this case, we're going to do an island in the center instead of two on the outside. This is to accommodate a bus stop that is just to the south of here, and should work really well for slowing people down. So that's the big change. Basically the same impact that we had to parking before, the same functionality for bike lanes, but this should be way more effective at slowing people down. As I mentioned earlier, you end up with that kind of lateral shift in traffic. I'm showing Emerson and Roosevelt here. So as you traverse this area, you kind of have to shift back and forth and maneuver your way around these kind of obstacles that are out there. That should really slow people down. We're planning on this treatment at all of the side street intersections of any significance on this roadway. So Michigan, Yale, Princeton, Harrison, Roosevelt, Emerson, Kensington, and Bryan should really create a good slow down area. This next map I'm showing is where we ended up being able to keep on-street parking on 1100 East. As you can see, as I mentioned earlier, we flipped from one side to the other. We tried to keep it so that it alternated fairly well. Honestly, where we put the on-street parking on this road was to maximize how much on-street parking was left when we were done. We looked at each of these block faces and said, how many driveways are there? Where are there fire hydrants? How much on-street parking can we actually keep? And we chose to keep the on-street parking on the side of the road that had the most that would be left when we were done. We also were able to keep all of the on-street parking just north of Harrison. When we were out doing our parking study, we found that that area had the highest parking demand, and we decided that we would be able to squeeze that in for this area. So we got that to work. Couple tweaks to bus stops from the last time I showed you this map. I think at Yale, we were talking about moving the bus stops to be, this bus stop would go further north and this bus stop would go further south. As we revisited our design, we decided that it was actually best to just keep those bus stops where they currently sit. And so those will stay where they are. At Kensington, we did the opposite. We looked at that and said, we actually need to move those bus stops to the far side of Kensington. So just past that intersection on the north and on the south for southbound. The other bus stops you're seeing here is exactly what I've shown in the past. So for the most part, those stayed the same, but just as we went through our design, we found that was a better fit. So basically from here, we're going to finish our design. We've got some details we still have to work out, but we're getting really close. That will continue through the end of the year, and then construction will still be next year. And then my email address, if anyone has any questions or comments, is lynn.jacobs@slcgov.com. That's all I've got for you, Jason.
That's great, Lynn. That is a bird's eye view of the future. That's pretty cool to see, what those streetscapes are going to look like. Do you have an indication of when that construction will start, in which direction it will move?
We do not have the details yet of phasing where the contractor where on the corridor they will start, but the plan is to start next spring and get going on it as soon as we can. We're also going to be building 11th East and Highland down in Sugar House, just to the south of here, at the same time. And so there will have to be a lot of coordination between the two projects. We won't have all of those details worked out until after we have hired a contractor. And that probably won't happen until, honestly, the beginning of next year. And so we'll hire a contractor, and then within a very short time frame, they'll be out starting to do this work. And so that's exciting.
That really is exciting. Yeah. Any other questions for Lynn?
Are there plans in place to make sure that during that construction, pedestrian and cycle traffic is not interrupted, or like at least is accommodated for during that construction? Because that's something that we've seen on Third West is a big problem. Is like it's a huge project to benefit those things, but in the meantime has made it incredibly difficult to traverse parts of that as a pedestrian. So I just was wondering if there are plans in place to make sure that those things are still possible on 11th during the construction period.
That's a fantastic question, Josie. And honestly, we still kind of have to work out some of those details, but I'll tell you, construction's a bear. It's hard on everybody. It's hard on people who are walking, people who are biking, people who are driving. And, you know, we try to balance out the need to keep that mobility high with the challenges the contractor will face as they build this roadway. And so it's really hard to work through all that. One of the things that's a real saving grace on this particular project is that for the most part, we're not really doing a lot with the sidewalks. We are going to be replacing broken sections of sidewalks. And so you'll see intermittent places where we'll have to close down a sidewalk for a while we replace that section of sidewalk. Generally, we try to make sure we keep sidewalk access on at least one side of the street whole the whole time. But that's a detail we're going to have to work through with our selected contractor, and those details will be coming. It's rough. I don't want to paint some sort of beautiful picture that it's going to work great for everybody, because in reality, when we go out and start building these things, it's a hard thing to get all that built, keep everyone moving, and not impact anyone. As far as cyclists go, one of the great things is that for the majority of this corridor, we have a really high quality facility in the McClellan Trail right next door. There will be some challenges right in that area where they overlap each other, and we'll have to kind of work through that together. So, pardon our dust. Be patient with us while we get through this. It will be impactful, and we will do whatever we can to try to mitigate those impacts and also communicate with community when those impacts are coming. So hopefully that answered your question.
Sometimes you got to make a mess to make things better, right?
Absolutely.
The one thing you just have to do is maybe be a little bit better than 900 South, which will also be being constructed in 2023.
They're all rough, and there's a lot of stuff going on. There's no doubt.
Yeah, August to November 2023, 9th South and the 9th and 9th area is going to be all torn up. So that's just something to keep on your radar. We have had presentations from them in the past. But when you think about it, 11th East and 900 South are the two real crossroads of ELPCO. If we can get those streets really nicely done, our community is going to benefit immensely. So any other questions for Lynn and his team? This is great, Lynn. I appreciate if you could put your contact info, or actually I put some info there, but if you make sure that I've got it all right, maybe add in anything else that I'm missing, I'd appreciate it. We'll wait till check in with you sometime soon and get maybe an update about when that construction will begin. We start tearing our hair out about 11th East until it all gets better. So. All right, well, let's move on in our transit focus to our e-bike consortium. We've got a couple people here to talk about e-bikes. If you haven't noticed, they're all over the place in Salt Lake City. You know, not only is Salt Lake a great city for biking, but you throw a motor on that bike and you can go a lot farther and faster. And all of a sudden, I've known at least 3 or 4 friends of mine who have reduced their car quotient by 1 simply because they picked up an e-bike. So let's start off with Salt Lake e-bikes, a business located in ELPCO on 700 East. And then we'll move into a couple of other presentations on this topic. So Matt, I see you there in the store. I see some fantastic things. And is it Alia as well with you?
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Take it away. It's great to actually look into something besides someone's wall all of a sudden and see something cool like e-bikes.
Yeah, we got, so we have quite a few bikes. We carry about 89 different styles of bikes, because everyone's different. But we have mid-drives, hub drives, cargo bikes, small bikes, foldable bikes, road bikes. We carry all of them, and we cater to a lot of commuters as well. So we love what Salt Lake's doing. We feel lucky and fortunate to be here, like right now.
And you actually presented at ELPCO years ago, a couple of years back, I think, in 2018 or 2017. I'm curious of what has changed in e-bike technology since then. Have the ranges gotten better? The speeds gotten better?
Yep. Speeds, actually the insurance has kept the speeds down. I don't know if you believe that or not, but they've kind of capped that out. But they are getting faster. They are more reliable. The batteries are going a lot further.
Well, just better built. Better components are being used.
Yep. You got spokes that are beefing up. You have components that are catching up. So all the bikes that we sell are electric bikes, and they were manufactured as electric bikes. Where we used to do a lot of conversions in the beginning, but now the bikes that we carry are, they're designed to be electric. But I mean, we have quite a few. We have about 400 in stock. And so we actually sell a lot of out of state as well. We ship out from here. So we have a good variety of bikes.
What are the typical questions someone coming into your store would ask about an e-bike? And could you answer them for us, just to kind of get us up to speed a little bit?
Probably price. Price would be the biggest, probably. We try to get you to test ride as many bikes as you can, because you can come in and we have all of them. You know what I mean? So if there's a certain brand or mark, we usually have that here where you can test ride it and compare it side by side. Because most people think, there's one e-bike and then that's it. But it's like any other industry. There's hundreds of thousands. So we go through and we pick them, and then we like them because we do a 1-year service on our bikes. And so what that does is if you're having a lot of issues, you don't want to carry that. And so I think we've been doing it 6 years, like full time. And so, it's fun. Let me tell you.
We want to keep folks up and running on
Yeah.
the bikes.
Yeah.
We'll get you in and out.
Yep.
Service. Going back to the money, though, we've got bikes in here from $1,600 all the way to $8,000.
Could you step a little closer to the mic? It's a little harder to hear you, Isla. I'm sorry. You were saying that you started about $1,500 and up. Is that right?
Yeah, 1,600. To like 8,000. But yeah, so it's $1,600. It's affordable, for a lot of people, especially if they're replacing a car and not paying for gas.
But we sell a lot of full suspensions too. So we actually ride a lot up here just up in the mountains, and it's gorgeous. I mean, if you live here and you should get a mountain bike and go up here. Anyway.
And do people buy bikes to like transport kids to school? I mean, is it commuters? Like, what are the typical customers looking for in terms of how they're going to use their bike?
We carry a line on the kid carrying, because we have 2 kids. We recommend a mid drive. You see a lot of people with a hub drive where they're going 30 miles an hour with kids. I prefer the mid drive, where it's more of a natural feel when you're taking the kids on it. I don't know if you can see this one.
There we go.
But this would be one that we would carry. But yeah, a lot of people, I mean, especially in the morning. I mean, think about traffic, going to school, dropping your kid off, and you start to see more bikes. We've seen a lot of rad bikes because they're down the street. We've seen a lot of the Ubas. These are the Benos. I think these are the best. That's our opinion, right? But do you have questions?
Yeah, any questions from our audience about e-bikes, whether you've got them or whether you're interested? Got a quiet audience. I thought e-bikes would get people excited.
I know, right?
I get excited about it.
I'll ask some questions, but I don't want to take away from anybody else.
No, go ahead, Michael. Yeah.
So I mean, e-bikes are super cool. Who wouldn't want one, right? But I don't wanna. I already got 3 bikes, you know, so I don't. I kind of like the idea of the conversion. I don't know if I'd figure out how to do it. So do you still do a lot of conversion? Do you still offer it?
There's better people that do, like Utah. I don't know if you know, like Utah Trikes. They do trikes, and these guys, they have top engineers that design these trikes. So if you're looking for a trike, the best trikes are Utah Trikes. I mean, world top of the line stuff. If you're doing the conversions, you know, Electrified is probably, because they are a Luma dealer, and so they have the components and they do a lot of it. We don't do a lot of it because there's a lot of maintenance involved. Does that make sense?
There is a lot of maintenance involved on the conversions.
On a conversion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me, I started there. That's why I do them all. So I get it.
Have you heard a lot of backlash about them on trails? Because it's kind of like when I see people with e-bikes on mountain bike trails, I'm just like, get off the trail.
Yeah.
That's kind of my opinion, you know?
We were up at
unless you're like 80. If you're like 80 and that's the only way you can get up, then cool. You know what I mean?
I don't think age should have to do with it. I mean, there's people with health problems who need to get out there. I think the electric bike, so there's an electric motorcycle and then there's electric bikes. So electric motorcycle would be like full throttle. Most of the dirt bikes that all the dirt bikes we carry, you're going to have a pedal assist. So even if I was like totally, I could probably rip it up more. You know what I'm saying? As far as riding up in the hills. But I'll get that off.
Yeah, we have seen it, and there's definitely places like in Park City they're not allowed unless you're over a certain age, like 65, or have a disability. But we basically tell our customers just be aware of your local land management and follow the trails and be courteous on your bike.
We were up here at 19th and we were riding our e-bikes, you know, and we're just talking and we see an electric motorcycle taking the crest. And we see all the hikers stop and they turn around and they're like, and I'm like, we got to go past these guys and they think we're the same people. It's like, so the most of the mountain bikes all the mountain bikes that we carry, I mean, there's a cap at 19 miles, but I mean, 19 going uphill.
You're not going 19.
Yeah, but we've been out and we've seen the electric motorcycles just up here at the Capitol, quite a few of them. But that is a difference, I think. But you shouldn't know an electric bike, you know, if you're up in the hills. But
now you mentioned something about the speeds with insurance. Do you have to have insurance to have an e-bike?
No, we have to have insurance.
Okay.
Our insurance is very expensive. We value the.
Gotcha.
E-bike is considered like a traditional bicycle, so unless there's different rules on the trail or path, they can pretty much go and they're regulated. That's great.
So, I mean, the normal body produces, like if someone puts out 250 watts, I believe, of normal human. I mean, most of these are 500, 350. Most of your mid drives are like 250 and less. So it's like two people running up the hill, you know. On some of that.
Mike, can I break in with a question?
Sure.
And that is, you make a big investment in a bike, spending a couple $1,000s. A lot of bikes get stolen. What are security considerations for something like an e-bike? Is this something that you want to leave outside a shop? I mean, or you get the forget about it lock? I mean, what would you recommend for people who purchase an e-bike to make sure they get to keep it and use it?
That's good. We've lost 5 this year. So
not lost, they've been stolen.
Yeah, like someone came in here and took them.
Cut the lock,
so we understand. Kryptonite is deterrent. Is don't leave it out. People put it in their garage and they're like, "Where am I? My lawnmower is here, but the bike's gone." It's like, chain it up. I tell people they'll put it in their bedroom and lock it up.
Sleep next to it.
Yeah, they're looking for it, and you see them out there riding bikes, and you're like, "Oh, yeah." You know, this is specialized. He's like, how do you get that? You know? So there, yeah, you have to lock them up. Definitely lock them up.
There are, we do have a brand, a tonic one, that.
It's a Bulgarian
comes with-
company.
It comes with a GPS.
6 months peen once you pull the battery out.
Yeah, in the frame.
So there are stuff out there, but don't lose it. Yeah, hide it. Get a dog.
Any other questions for Salt Lake e-bikes? Maybe before you go, tell us where you are, what your hours are, how people can find you as well.
So we're located just right across from Liberty Park. We're that big yellow building, just on 7th East as you go in that corridor. And then we're closed Sundays and Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And every other day.
And what is your website?
Oh,
saltlakeebikes.com.
Okay. All right. The original.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw out, we also do rentals. So we also do free test rides, but if you want to go for a long ride, a lot of folks will rent the bike and go do their commute, their exact route from their home to their work. But we'll apply that first $90 towards the purchase of a bike. But
the other thing, we do a lot of group tours with the full suspensions. We can cater up to about 25 people on full suspensions. And that's fun. It's a good team building, you know, getting people up there.
Yeah.
So.
Great. Any other questions for Salt Lake e-bikes before we move on? I think you guys win the contest for best backdrop for a video call today, for sure.
All fake. We're gonna pull it down.
Oh, it's all fake, right? Okay. All right. Well, that still wins for creativity. Well, thank you for coming on and coming back to ELPCO. And thanks for being a great business here in our community council and in our city. And we hope we can get you some business from this video and from the meeting and see more of our neighbors out there on e-bikes.
yeah,
We love you guys.
yeah.
So thank you
Thanks.
for everything you
Thank
guys
you,
are doing. Infrastructure, bike lanes. We
Great.
love it.
Yeah. We'll have
Thank
some
you.
better infrastructure soon. So
Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
great. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. All right. Well, let's move on to a first-person testimonial about e-bikes from someone who's got one, I think pretty recently. And Alessandro, can you take it away and let us know what owning an e-bike is actually like?
Yeah, so hi, thanks for having me. So I actually have 3, not 1. And I've had a few, you know, so I have some slides if you want to, by the way. Is that cool? They're
Yeah,
just
that's
they're
totally
just,
cool. Did I
they're
make
just-
you a co-host so you can do that? Or
yeah, there's just random images, but I feel that it might be helpful.
yeah, go right ahead.
The professor in me could not help. Give me a sec. Okay, so this is
Just made you a
started-
co-host, so that should make it easier.
Okay. And then share screen. Okay. So yeah, I moved to Salt Lake in 2019 to work at the U. And we moved from a small town in the middle of Illinois. I was a professor there, Champaign, Urbana, and when we moved here, we downscaled from 2 cars to 1 car, and we have 2 kids. And so in place of that 1 car that we sold, we bought an e-bike. And the first one we bought was like the one you see on the left. You know, it's like less fancy than that, but it's a commuter sort of e-bike that, you know, staying in the business. We actually used to live in you know, in East Liberty, and we bought the one from Contender. So, but you know, so we have, you know, 2 kids, age 3 and 5 right now. And so for us, it's been like something that has been substituting the second car. You know, then COVID hit. So initially we didn't use them much, but then I bought for my wife's birthday, we bought one of the cargo bikes that you see on the right. And then a few months ago over the summer, we bought a second cargo bike because we felt that having 2 would make it more flexible to pick up kids. Maybe one drops them off in the morning, the other person picks them up in the afternoon. So, you know, we can both use e-bikes for just general regular stuff. And so I think I estimated in the last 12 months, Combined, we rode more than 2,000 miles. So we use it for a lot of stuff. So we live somewhere where the red dot is, kind of sugar housey, Easter sugar housey area, and I took Strava, and I don't record everything, but I try to record things just to keep track of where I go and what I do. And so those are some of the routes. And so, I go to work, we do school pickup and drop off. We go mostly smaller grocery store trips, parks or food pickup, for dinner, from restaurants. We bring the kids to parks, to play dates, farmers markets. I ride all the way to Mill Creek next to the Brickyard. That's a little scary at some point, but we still do it. That's where my daughter has ballet. We came down to the street fair, 9th and 9th. We went all the way to the Gateway for the Festa Italiana on Sunday, for example. So a lot of things. The only things that we do not do via e-bike are going to the mountains, going to road trips. Airport, that would be a little complicated. And then I don't know if there's like a good place to leave the bikes for a long time. And then, we shop quite a bit at Costco, and that's something that we generally do by car. And although I know people who do go to Costco and manage to just load their e-bikes, but so yeah, for the most part, we use e-bikes. Like biking, there are issues. Nothing is perfect. Street safety is number one, and I'm very grateful for Alex and Sweet Streets for the work they do, as well as other advocacy groups. I generally ride on secondary residential streets, avoiding the arterial streets. For the most part, unfortunately, we have painted bike lanes. They're honestly a bit of a joke. It doesn't protect you from anything. And second, there are places where I don't go because there are no good enough places where bikes would be stolen. There aren't good bike racks. I feel that there are missed opportunities for a lot of businesses to have bike racks outside. And I wish the city or businesses built more like of those bike cages where you could have like a card to scan and just put the bike in there and lock it. But other than that, I bike it. I bike when it snows, unless there's like more than 2-3 inches on the ground. I bike with 100 degrees. I've gone up the hill without any, barely breaking a sweat, even when it's really hot. And what else I wanted to say? Oh, the benefits are so many that I could speak for the entire evening, but I'm not going to do that. But for a start, they're more fun than driving. I have 2 kids. If you have kids, you probably realize, my kids at least, it's a huge pain to put them in the car seats. They hate it. There's never a complaint going on the e-bike. They talk to each other, they look around, they sing. Second, it saves a lot of money, a lot. A second car, owning it, insurance, repairs, gas, you name it. I read estimates that it costs about $10 a year to charge an e-bike if you charge it every other day. And maintenance has been very minimal since I owned any of them. And then I do it because I care about environment, I care about climate change, and I care about air quality locally. People who say that e-bikes are cheating, they're wrong, because there is research showing that people for at least utilitarian reasons, right? To go to stuff you need to do anyway, you ride more often, you ride longer distances, and overall you have more physical activity after switching to an e-bike. And that's what I noticed with myself. And then the other thing, this is part of the fun, piece, but you meet a lot of people, it's much more, convivial, social than being closed, locked in a little car. I met people that were acquaintances, we stopped to chat. And so I understand that for most people, it's not the only option, because giving up a car is really hard, especially if you are here and want to, have access to the mountains and all that. what I in my little spiel to my friends is like, you can substitute car trips. Basically, if a trip is very short and it's places where it's safe to go, that e-bike lets you, not drive for that trip. And I think over time that makes a lot of difference, for our city, and for your own health. I read part of this little thing. If you're interested and want to get hyped, there's a little manifesto that I recommend, and that's about it.
Thank you, Alessandro. There's nothing like a manifesto that convince people to go along with your idea, right?
I didn't write that. I wish that. But I didn't. That's not some of my work.
Any questions for Alessandro about his e-bike experience? It's I think it's really great that you've got young kids and you're kind of doing that whole school schlep, which I'm very familiar with, and that you can do it on an e-bike. That is transformative right there. Any questions for Alessandro or any follow-ups? What do you do for security, Alessandro? Do you have some major locks? Do you chain it up really well?
Yeah, I have a kryptonite. Multiple because
multiple
bikes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I should say that I grew up in Italy, where bike theft is even more of an issue than here. I mean, there's literally nothing you can leave around. And so I sort of, and I've been a bike rider before being, an e-bike rider. And so it's not the same as for somebody who's never, who doesn't ride a bike except for recreation. So I sort of know what to do, what not to do, and the situations that I should try to avoid, because I learned them by experience over time.
Gotcha. Like places you shouldn't leave a bike outside, for instance.
Yeah, where there's nobody in the dark at night, and you can't lock it against something that is metal against the frame of your bike. That's not a good idea.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your perspective. It's great to learn how these things can be added to your real life and can make a difference. The 2,000 miles and $10 a year, those are the two numbers that stick out for me as how sort of transformative these tools can be. So, well, great. Well, we've talked about roads, we've talked about the tools, and now we get to talk about policy. So let's switch over to Alex Cragen, an old friend of mine, who's here to represent Sweet Streets. Alex, I think you're here.
I am. Hey, Jason, how you been, man?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. No, thank you for having me come on and talk policy. Yeah, no, so for the folks that don't know, my name is Alex Cragen. I'm on the board of Sweet Streets Salt Lake City, or just Sweet Streets. Our mission is to advocate for people-centered, inclusive street design. So people-centered versus what our current norms are. I don't want to go over a history of the last, 70 plus years of sort of development design of road infrastructure around cars, sort of that shift post-World War II. And so what our mission and goal is to recenter back onto human mobility, right? Folks that are getting around, utilizing something other than a car. Inclusive in that not everybody gets around, on a bicycle. Some folks are using public transit, some are using a mobility device. And so we want to ensure that when we're designing our streets, that all folks are part of that process, that they're included in that process, and they feel represented and they feel safe in their community when getting about. So yeah, that's our org. We most notably recently did some work around 20 is plenty. We sort of led out on that here in Salt Lake City, and we want to express our thanks to council member. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking names.
Councilmember Mono, or
thank you, Councilmember Mono. Thank you for leading out on those efforts, and Councilmember Poi and Petra Eschler on their work and their support, the entire council and the mayor's office. But we were really excited to see that. Unfortunately, it came at a pass of after some folks lost their lives to traffic violence. But nevertheless, we've been seeing some progress as a city, and we've starting to see the signs sort of being poking up, starting going and being replaced.
Can you back up a bit and tell us what the 20 is Plenty initiative was and what the changes the city council did?
Yeah, so prior to the ordinance change, Salt Lake City's default speed limit for roads in the lowest sort of like setting or close speed limit was like 25 miles per hour. Now the traffic engineer for the city could lower it or raise it as they see fit. And it's also based on the class of road that it might be. For example, there's local roads, there's collector roads, and there's arterials. Good way to sort of like differentiate that would be like, I would say like 800 east out around 400 south is like an example of a local road. An arterial would be like 700 east, right? It's almost like it's designed to move people, right? And a collector street, and depending on where you're at, 13th south would be a good example of a collector street. And the idea there is to get people to those arterials so they can get moving around. Anyways, I'm going in the weeds there. So it was 25 miles an hour. We put out a petition. We worked and networked with the community and urged folks to connect with their council members to adopt a 20 miles per hour speed limit, lowering it to from that 25. In particular, focused on local roads, and that initially we were hoping to get some additional roads and collector streets that were there, but working with the council and the mayor, we were able to figure out with them like that the local road approach was going to be the best one. It still affected more than 70% of Salt Lake City streets, which is completely transformative. That being said, there's still a lot of work to be done. A lot of traffic violence and traffic pedestrian related fatalities and incidents occur around arterial roads and collector streets. And so some of our focus and work is going to be trying to make those areas safer as well for folks to get around. So we're appreciative of that work, but it's the first step in a better direction for the city. Yeah, but it's we're let's see here, trying to think here what else there is on that end. Not have that, right? Jason, have any questions?
Yeah, I guess how does Sweet Streets make impact? Do you have meetings? Do you do public advocacy? Do you speak up? Maybe describe that, and then describe how people get involved if they want to take this on.
So we show up at local community events, so things like this. We're also at the West Side Coalition meeting tonight, out on I wanted to say to the Sorensen Impact Center, but I'm not 100% there. Anyways, there some of our board members are there tonight tabling as well. We are also at the farmers market. We're going to be there this Saturday, so if you want to stop by, come say hello. You'll see us. We're in that. It's like a green sort of like tent. It's green as in like the street sign green. Can't miss it. Come pick up a sticker. Come pick up some material, some brochures. In terms of like how what we're doing at the community, we're hoping to do some advocacy trainings here in the near future. We're actually meeting this weekend to sort of work on that curriculum, what that looks like. How can people, advocate on behalf of their neighborhood to improve streets? Also, like how they can get comfortable with the idea of meeting with their community council members, right? Or their city council members. I don't think that the audience here might not be as reluctant about that, but a number of folks are. And so going and getting them comfortable with that idea of being able to talk to someone who's an elected official and being able to speak to the issues that they care about in a way that is impactful to that member of an elected office, to move them in that direction. It takes a lot of work. I have been involved in public transportation advocacy for, oh my goodness, a decade now, I want to say. It's been a bit. And I've only in the last 5 years have been thinking about this as a more inclusive package, right? So it's definitely something that you have to walk people towards. So we've got some training for having in mind. We also have this informal meetup. We don't really set a set date. We don't set a set time. You'll find out on Twitter, be like, hey, we're going to show up here in a week from now at this, we were at Tea's Auntie last month, and we were at Fisher Brewing the month prior. But we're planning on doing those things. If you're interested, you want to come shop with us, come nerd out about bike lanes and traffic speeds, we're all there for it. So we'd love for people to come and join us and get involved. But yeah, in terms of how to learn more about events that we're doing, we have our newsletter, we have our Twitter account, social media, that sort of thing, and our website. Thank you, Jason, for putting that, by the way. Feel free to sign up for that. We'll have action alerts with things relevant to Salt Lake City.
That's great, Alex. And people can sign up for the newsletter on the website. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
I
yes.
put in a couple of contexts there.
Yeah.
Any questions for Alex about Sweet Streets, about Salt Lake City, and what he's described? I think one of the interesting facts about your background, Alex, is you were one of the few people I know who's voted yourself out of existence.
Oh, that's right.
Because you were on the UTA board, right? And then you dissolved yourself.
Yeah, we did. The legislature had made some intentions to reform the board, and felt that instead of having a committee of 12, that they would rather have a commission of 3. I have my feelings about that, but nevertheless, Beth Holbrook, Commissioner Holbrook, Commissioner Christensen, and there's one other one, I can't remember them. Anyways, they've been doing an incredible job. I really appreciate some of the progress that UTA has been doing, and look forward to a brighter, more public transit friendly future here in the Salt Lake Valley.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for that info. I went to one of those meetups at Tizanti, which is just outside of ELPCO, but close enough here on 11th East. It was a lot of fun. And let's just say I got laughed by everybody on their e-bikes as they were heading there, and I was pedaling away on my old school bike. So
I'm still on my acoustic.
Okay.
I need to go stop by the e-bike store and go pick up one. I'm planning to get a bucket bike. We'll see. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm still on my 4-year one. So thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks for coming, Alex. Really appreciate it. Thanks much. Okay. Let's kind of go back to some ELPCO business. We've got a couple of things that we want to just wrap up with. And one is that we have a couple of board vacancies for ELPCO right now. We have a couple of board members that are leaving after serving for several years. And so we normally do nominations in September and vote in October. That's what's in our bylaws. We don't have anybody who stepped forward to fill these vacancies as of yet. We're still doing some outreach, but we do accept people that want to reach out to us and let us know if they're interested. I put up the map of ELPCO in the chat, as well as the areas where we have vacancies in East Liberty Park. We've got the West Emerson and then Gilmer Park as well. So feel free to reach out, and I'll put the ELPCO email in there so you can reach out to us if you're interested in any of these vacancies. Our board members are also doing some outreach as well. And thank you, Becca, for you and for Will for the service that you've had in the Gilmer Park area. We kind of poached you from Liberty Wells, and we appreciate all that you've done representing historic Gilmer, and appreciate the note that you left at that point there. So yeah, we've got some vacancies. If you want to get involved in your community, in your community council, this is the time to do it. This is the way to step forward. It's not a huge time commitment to be a board member, but you do get to make a difference, specifically in your neighborhood, and then even for the city as a whole. So to check us out, if you like what we do, or you have your ideas about how you want to change what we do, this is a great chance to get involved. I have a couple of other announcements I want to make, but I want to check to see if there's any new business or any other announcements from our board members or others that are here that they think we want to spotlight. Anything to bring up, folks? Nothing new. Okay, I just want to put one more reminder about the East Side Salt Lake City Candidate Forum on October 3rd. That's Monday, October 3rd. Monday, it's kind of an unusual date, but that was the best day we could find, where we're going to have a lot of the candidates that you'll find on your November ballot. They're accessible. You can talk to them. They'll be speaking. We want this to be really of a mingle and kind of meet and greet event. So you can ask your questions to those candidates. We have several competitive races at stake here. So put that on your calendar for Monday, October 3rd, Highland High School, starting at 6 o'clock. That will be a good event to help you prepare for the election. Ballots will go out in about mid-October. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you can complete the survey we have about the 9th to 9th Street Festival, I put that in the chat as well. That will help us plan future 9th to 9th festivals. So we'll have a bit of a challenge next year with the construction that's going to be happening at the 9th and 9th intersection. That's going to be torn up completely. So we're going to try to be creative about ways that we can bring the festival back, despite not really having 9th and 9th to do it in. We'll figure out a way to make it work even if we're displaced for a year. Those were the last announcements I had. Besides that, our next ELPCO meeting will be just before Halloween. Costumes are optional. It'll be Thursday, October 27th at 7 o'clock, probably online again, but stay tuned for the ELPCO newsletters and online. We'll let you know. There's no other questions or business. Anybody got anything? Then I think we can stand adjourned.